how well do you know your family health history? Know what runs in your family can sometimes be key to managing your own health. We have Michelle Hall with us, a lead genetics counselor with Mercy Health, so we can learn a little bit more about this. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So yeah, let's talk first of all about genetic history. We need to know, every time I go to the doctor, they said, does high blood pressure run in your family? And you're going, I don't know, or, all of these questions about family health history. Why is it so important that we know that information?
Sure. Knowing about certain conditions that run in your family can be very helpful in helping understand your own personal risk for some of those diseases. You mentioned heart disease, things like cancer can run in families. And so doing a genetic test may be a way to help understand more about a person's risk factors, which may lead to opening up some doors for better early detection, and opportunities for prevention.
Yeah, they always say early detection is key. So if we
hmm
know that you may have this predisposition, this type of cancer may run in your family, you could stay on top of that. So what exactly is genetic testing though? Is that, am I going to have to get my blood drawn? What does that all entail?
Sure. Genetic testing is a process to analyze an individual's DNA, and most commonly it is done through a blood sample. Sometimes it's done through a saliva sample, and they send that off to a laboratory to do some analyzing. And usually results will take a couple weeks to come back and then provide that additional information to that person about what they are testing for, whether it be cancer, heart disease, or a particular condition.
Yeah, I imagine there's a wide variety of things that we can test for.
Yes, that's correct. I'd say more commonly, cancer, certainly, heart disease, but a lot of your other conditions, you'll see that becoming more common, especially as our research continues to evolve.
And once we find out that information, then from there we can figure out what we're going to do with it. I imagine that's where genetic counseling comes into play.
Sure. A genetic counselor is someone who is trained in medical genetics and exactly that, then interpreting a lot of those complex results. So once we have that information, we work with the patient and their doctors to come up with an action plan, more specifically when and what type of screening might be helpful, what age that individual should start those particular screenings, and how often.
Yeah, I think that we hear, okay, if you're a woman, you should have your first mammogram at 40 or baseline or whatever. But at that point, your doctor might say, we might start you at 35.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, so these are just things that we could do to stay on top of our health so that hopefully, if something does come up, we can catch that early, right?
Yep, that's exactly it.
So let's talk about, Christmas is coming up, holidays are coming up. People might be like, maybe I can get this genetic testing thing that I see on the internet and gift that to someone.
Right. So genetic test kits that are ordered through the mail are what we would consider direct to consumer tests. These do not usually involve a medical professional, and they're typically paid for out of pocket by the individual. These usually provide information about ancestry, but more commonly are providing information about like health traits and health risks. The major limitation of these tests are that they don't test for all genetic variants, so they can't reliably be used to rule out a particular risk or condition. You can kind of compare that to a false negative result. So someone might have some false reassurance about what their risk is while they're making that, using that to make medical decisions. Similarly, we can see false positive results. And that's why with all direct to consumer tests, it is recommended that that person follow up on those results and even then have them confirmed by a clinical grade test.
Yeah, I
So those
imagine.
clinical grade, oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, can somebody, if they get, say they did the DNA testing or kit or whatever they got, and it showed something, at that point, do they go to their doctor and say, hey, is there another test we can do?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we would recommend. And that's where a referral to a genetic counselor would be very helpful. That individual would look at the testing that has been completed and then make recommendations for additional testing if needed.
So it could be helpful in a way, but as you said, definitely not this scientific, confirmation or anything like that. So
I think it helps get the conversations started, but it definitely is something that individuals should do their research on, and know the benefits and limitations of what type of test they're choosing.
So I think, knowledge is power here. So we could do everything that we can within our own knowledge to say, hey, we know this runs in my family. I'm going to just stay on top of it as much as possible. That's the best we could do, right?
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate it. Really interesting information.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.